welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about season 2 of The Serpent Queen. This one just dropped today as I am recording this, and we only have one episode so far, but as I covered season 1 about a year and a half ago to almost 2 years now, I figured that I would talk about this series again because we have a lot of new listeners and a lot of people kind of tuning in to the channel to hear about all of this who might have missed that first season's episode. So for anyone who is not familiar with The Serpent Queen, this is a historical drama, sort of similar to Firebrand, if anyone listened to that episode. But the difference between the two, though I will say probably both of them are about as historically accurate as the other, I do find The Serpent Queen a lot more compelling of a story, and I think the acting and sort of how things are done is a lot more entertaining and a lot less slow and boring as Firebrand was, at least to me. This one is the story of Catherine de Medici, who is played by Samantha Morton, who I absolutely adore. Before she signed on to do Serpent Queen, she was in another show called Harlots, which made it 3 seasons before they canceled that, and I loved that show. So if anyone has not seen Harlots, I highly recommend seeing that one. Samantha Morton has been one of my favorite actresses to watch since she starred in Minority Report with Tom Cruise. That's where I kind of first took notice of her. And then she has played in a lot of sort of historical drama TV series and things that is kind of how I've kept up with her because I very much enjoy those. She does an excellent job, in my opinion, of playing Catherine de Medici, where you can absolutely see sort of that, not vindictiveness, I don't think that's the right word, but you can see the calculative way that her mind works and how she sort of pretends to maybe not be as cunning as she very clearly is. You can definitely see in that first season how her fingers are sort of going out and making these connections and really putting herself in a position of authority and power before her husband dies. And so she kind of becomes regent of France until her first son becomes king in that first season. And Catherine de Medici, in real life, 3 of her sons were crowned as king of France. But I really think the majority of that time, it is far more likely that Catherine de Medici was pulling the strings or in charge of a lot of that. And you do see the way that she's able to sort of twist and mold or change the way that things go with her children. If there is a wife that starts to make decisions that she is not keen on, she will find a way to sort of manipulate and separate them and get herself kind of back in the role of being in charge. I know in historical context, Catherine de Medici was known as being very sort of vindictive and very evil, I guess. Like, people did not enjoy her, but I really think that there is a lot more nuance to her character, at least in the television series, that I very much enjoy. I think that Samantha Morton kind of does this really good combination of showing that she did have a tender side, but she very much was not going to let anyone get the upper hand over her. I think she learned a lot of that when she was younger, being taken advantage of or being naive, and then sort of learning slowly over time that is not the way that she is going to prosper in life. And you can imagine, all of this is happening during sort of the mid to late 1500s is sort of when Catherine de Medici was in power in France. And you'd have to just imagine that, like, women did not have a ton of sovereignty or control over their own lives during that period of time. And especially during this period of time when the Catholic and Protestant churches are kind of going back and forth over whether or not one or the other can be in control of really what the people are getting in terms of their religion and in terms of how they are communicating with God. So you do see kind of more of that happening in the second season. We have now sort of gone into a whole new son of Catherine's being old enough to sort of take over his own regency and sort of push Catherine aside a little bit, though I feel like she is still very much in control here, but you do sort of see those first inklings of potentially making a tie or a treaty between France and England, and kind of some of the horribleness that comes out of the Catholic Church trying to remain in control and in power. So I for sure would recommend tuning into The Serpent Queen if you have not watched this one, or if you were not sure if it was worth watching. I definitely think it is. I definitely think it's along the lines of like Becoming Elizabeth, if you really enjoyed that one. I am really hoping for some of that back and forth potentially in this season between Catherine de Medici and Queen Elizabeth. I think it would be very interesting to see those two strong women in the same room together and see kind of how that works out and how they navigate one another. So 100% would recommend The Serpent Queen if you haven't watched this one. Subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.